Hello, and thank you for giving up your time to listen to my presentation on my EPQ. I hope you find it informative and that I'm able to get across how much work has gone into this project, as well as how successful it was. I would like to start with an introduction to my project. My project was a practical one, and as such my final product was in the form of a couple of prototypes which can be seen here, and a written report evaluating them in terms of my research question. That being an evaluation of the effectiveness and efficiency of different methods of control in a replica robotic appendage. The prototypes consist of a robot arm and test stand, a controller, an exoskeleton, and an EMG module, the latter three being the different methods of control for the arm. So why did I choose this topic? I chose this topic because it's in line with some of my personal projects. This is one I wanted to do for a while. The fact that my Arkwright scholarship has given me money to spend on an engineering project. My Arkwright sponsor also does some robotics related work, and I want to do mechatronic engineering at university, as well as having an interest in prosthetics. What aims and objectives did I set out? First off, I had to answer my hypothesis question. To do this, I built a robot arm that could very closely mimic human motion, a controller, an exoskeleton from fingers to shoulders that could capture the whole movement of the subject's arm, and a system using an EMG sensor. Then I had to compare them to each other to evaluate their effectiveness, in terms of ease of use, how intuitive it is, and cost. During the course of my research, I used about 20 sources alongside my own knowledge. I vetted each source by how relevant and useful to the project it was, as well as by any obvious bias. For example, some of the sources were linked to online stores to buy the components they were informing me on. This showed a fair amount of bias, whereas an independent blog or medical educational resource would seem to have little. So what conclusion did I come to? Firstly, I had to evaluate the successfulness of all parts of my project. The arm. Here are some of the examples of research and development work I had done, as well as a video of a CAD model I made. Here's a rough replica of my own left arm, consisting of a hand, forearm, biceps and shoulder, giving it 6 axes of rotation as well as individual articulation of each finger. An electrical mechanical device controls each point of movement. For example, the shoulder uses 3 stepper motors, the elbow uses a stepper motor, the forearm and wrist each use one large servo, and every finger has its own small 9G servo. Indirect control. Here are some examples of the research and development work I had done, as well as a video detailing some testing. There are 5 joysticks. Each one can move 2 joints by measuring where the stick is in terms of its X and Y coordinates, and transmitting that data to the microcontroller. Here is a video detailing a test. Analog control. Here are some examples of research and development work I had done. Most of this is engineering drawings and notes I've made. Each joint on the exoskeleton corresponds to a motor on the arm. Each joint ascertains its position using a potentiometer. The demonstration setup is almost exactly the same as the indirect method of control, except it uses the exoskeleton instead of the controller. Digital control. Each sensor module needs 3 electrodes, 2 situated across the desired motor group, and the third nearby for reference. Unfortunately, due to the lack of availability and a 3 times price increase since my initial research, I was not able to source the 11 that I needed, although I believe that this demo shows that it would have worked had I been able to procure the rest. So after building and testing the different control mechanisms of the arm, I've come to the conclusion that while the analog method is the most intuitive and easiest to use, it doesn't give the full range of motion that the indirect method gives, and is more expensive. With more time to develop though, I believe that I could give the analog method a greater range of motion, and that combined with its ease of use, you just move your arm as usual, would lead to it being the superior method of control. With more time. For the arm, I would redesign it so that it's shorter and strip it down so that it weighs less. I would increase the power of the steppers and finger servos, and 3D model and print the fingers so they would be stronger. For indirect, I would make the controller more ergonomic and maybe incorporate the push-down button on the joystick to freeze position. For analog, I would replace the Velcro with elastic. I would 3D print it instead of using foam board to increase strength, and redesign it so that all the potentiometers can be utilised, / use a different type of potentiometer. For direct, I would actually try to source the last of the sensors, or make my own. Upon reflection on my EPQ and myself as a project manager, I feel that my strengths in this project lie in the area of problem solving, showing resilience when facing with complex problems and recovering quickly after setbacks, as well as actually completing the project. My weakness is that I will work to improve going forward, wherein initially gauging how long certain tasks would take, as it can be seen from numerous revisions to my project timeline here, dealing with burnout after setbacks and the frustration that came alongside that, and at times I may have overstated my abilities and been a bit too ambitious, but it all worked out in the end. Over the course of this project, I feel that, in terms of my personal skills I've developed throughout and the understanding of my EPQ, I feel that I've improved my organisational, time management and self-motivation skills, and additionally gained experience being a project manager and researching skills which will no doubt be essential in university. As well as this, I've increased my knowledge in electrical and mechanical engineering, as well as 3D designing, CAD, rapid prototyping and woodwork, all of which will be beneficial when it comes to the university course I want to do and the field I want to go into. I'm glad I undertook this project, as I feel the experience of managing it and the other skills I have gained will be invaluable for university, even if it was incredibly taxing on my stress and school studies at times. But I finished it and managed to answer my research questions, so I'm proud of myself, as the subject matter was very high level. I just wish I had more time and didn't have other pressing distractions such as schoolwork, revision and UCAS, so that I could fully realise this project, as I was so close. Thank you for listening, and I am more than happy to answer any questions in the comments below.